Well, welcome back. Now, recently there has been an upsurge in the number of businesses, educational institutions, government officials and private citizens who have discovered to their cost that what they or their employees say online can have serious consequences. Two Bowman attorneys have put together an easily understood legal framework for online behavior for professionals and corporates using the same laws that apply to offline. Their new book, Social Media in the Workplace. Rosalind Davey, a partner at Bowman, and Lenya Dams Jansen is a senior associate at Bowman. The authors of the book, they join us in studio for more. Thank you so much for your time. Now, you're applying or you're talking about laws that apply to offline and online in terms of what people can say. Could you please explain what you mean there?
Well, essentially, the problem with social media is there's no specific law that deals with social media. And what a lot of people don't realize is that the same laws apply. So what you can and can't do offline, same rules apply online. But a lot of people see social media as a reason to get out there, have their say. It's a very good, platforms for expressing yourself, for the right to freedom of expression, but people very often take it overboard and they don't realize that there are boundaries within which they should use social media.
But let's talk about some of those boundaries and what you can and can't say. There's a lady, I think her name is Vicky Myberg, some couple of weeks ago, months ago, in fact, who was a video recorded having a racist rant at a police officer. Now, she's since been found guilty. So if you have or say racist slurs on social media, is this something that you'd possibly be penalized for?
Definitely. So what we tend to stress in the book a lot, and often in South Africa what we find is that a lot of people equate the right to freedom of expression with America's right to freedom of expression, which is virtually unlimited. And what we say in this book is that in South Africa, and in terms of the Constitution, the right to freedom of expression isn't unlimited. So in terms of the Constitution, there are specifically excluded types of speech, for example, your hate speech, your incitement to commit violence. And that's really a point that we want to make in the book, is that you can be held accountable for those types of speech on social media as well. You would also recall Penny Sparrow, who was taken to the Equality Court. Yeah. During the course of last year, and that was specifically for the hate speech as well that she put out on social media.
Right, so you're kind of restricted, no? Or is it just about playing within your barriers?
You are restricted. You need to also understand and recognize other people's rights. So in as much as I have the right to freedom of expression, you have the right to privacy, you have the right to dignity. And essentially, rule of thumb, my right to freedom of expression ends where your right to privacy and your right to dignity starts.
Right. So let's talk about corporates, because I understand you've written this book for corporates. Let's see the book. Right. Just for our viewers who don't know what we're talking about, so this is the book that we're currently discussing about the legal framework, rather, for navigating the social media space in terms of what you can and can't say. So now, what can corporates draw from this?
So largely what we set out for corporates is just guidelines on operations. So what the book culminates in is the creation of a social media strategy for the corporation, and then also a social media policy, which obviously we advocate quite strongly. So what the book is about is it doesn't sort of propose that everyone should be prohibited from using social media. It's inevitable that's going to integrate into everyday life. But what we do say is that it's so important for corporates to encourage their employees to use social media responsibly. So it's really a lot about education and sort of having frameworks in place so that if a social media crisis does hit at the end of the day, that you are prepared as an employer to deal with the fallout of that, such as brand damage, consumer discontent, and other legal issues as well.
So when you're talking about not limiting social media for employees, you mean so not closing the tabs on like a Facebook or Twitter in the workplace?
You can't stop people being on social media. Yes, some companies say, well, if you're using our equipment, you shouldn't be, you can't be on social media. But everyone's got smartphones. They've all got the social media apps. And I think you're going to create a huge problem if you say to your employees, you're not allowed on social media. Because, you're going to have discontent, you're going to have people not wanting to work for your organization. The real issue is to make sure that you as the management understand the do's and don'ts of social media, and that you train your employees on the responsible use of social media so that your employees know the parameters within which they can and should use social media, and the consequences if they use social media outside of those parameters.
I mean, for corporates, could you just also highlight maybe one or two other factors that should form part of their social media strategy and their social media policy?
Sure. So what we've seen quite often is that corporates don't think about the ownership consequences of social media. So, you know, where you have people that are employed to use social media accounts on behalf of the company for marketing and PR purposes. But what happens if that employee leaves? Who does that social media platform and the followers belonging to that platform belong to, the company or the employee? So we encourage employers to regulate those types of consequences at the outset in contracts so that you're not under any sort of mistaken conceptions about who owns what. So it does get quite interesting when you think of things like, you know, owning platforms and owning the content on the platforms as well. So that would be what I would suggest.
That's very interesting. I mean, if I'm in charge of the social media here at CNBC Africa, you would think that, you know, when I leave, I have been quite an important factor in growing the followership. I mean, some of those should belong to me, you know?
Well, there was an example in America a couple of years ago. It was the case of Phone Dog versus Kravitz. And what happened in that case is Phone Dog employed Noah Kravitz to disseminate information about their products. And part of his duties was to go onto social media and inform the public about the products that Phone Dog had. And he, I think, got a following of about 17,000 Twitter users. His Twitter handle was at Noah Phone Dog _Noah. And he tweeted both personal and business use. When he left to go to a competitor, he changed the Twitter handle from Phone Dog _Noah to Noah Kravitz. And he continued to tweet, now promoting his new employer's products. And this resulted in quite a lot of litigation because Phone Dog said, but wait a minute, those 17,000 followers are ours.
Right.
That's, you know, those are our marketing. That's our marketing. It's our following. We don't want that going across to a competitor. So they then sued Noah Kravitz. Now, unfortunately for those of us who are lawyers, there was no finding by the court because they came to an out-of-court settlement that was confidential, so we don't know the outcome. So we don't know what the courts would ultimately have found, but it is a huge risk. You know, a lot of companies spend a lot of money on people who come in to disseminate information, to do their PR, to do their business development. And then, you know, they want to retain that, you know, the fruits of that work when their employees leave. So it's always, as Lenya said, it's always a very good idea to regulate that up front. If you have a social media account that you use for business and personal use, it needs to be regulated so that everyone is on the same page. If you've got a contract in place, then the terms of that contract will apply, which will make it much easier. Just
a quick one. Have any of you monitored the Twitter accounts of our current police minister, Fikile Mbalula? And I asked, let me tell you. So he is coming across very strong against criminals. But some of the things that he says on his Twitter account, I mean, if you are a criminal trying to take this guy on, he says basically, I don't know, it borders on hate speech and, gosh, guys, you know, English is I can't translate. You know what? Let me leave it there. We'll have this conversation offline. Sure. I'll ask you. Thank you so much. That was Rosalind Davey, a partner at Bowman's, and Lenya Dams Janssen, who is a senior associate at Bowman's. And thank you so much for your time. That is where we leave it for Powerline South Africa at this stage. I'll be back with you when the markets are closed with Karabolo Tlata. For now, cheers.
Most people in Access Bank, just by association, have come to like some form of art or the other. It basically shows our history and it's an integral part of our culture. There are more collectors locally. There are more people who are interested in Nigerian and African art. Having watched ArtX, we found it extremely inspiring. Very innovative platform which combines several different aspects of art. It's music, it's creative art, the whole world of art.
You watch it live, now bet on it. Visit BetCosa on your mobile phone or computer. Sign up and we'll double your first deposit. BetCosa, the game starts here.
In Forbes Africa November,